Hey, what's up, guys? This is Art from Techno Guy. This is the intro for parts 1 and 2 that I believe are labeled 2 and 3, which is got me all cross-eyed. I mixed it up, but this is sort of like a juxtaposition. It's the beginning and the ending sort of mixed together. I am walking you through the final product, and then what's labeled, I believe, part 2 and part 3, but I reference as part 1 and part 2 in the video, are actually me creating the forms, and which is sort of the main mechanism for this application and adding everything up. So what I was doing is, you can see here on the screen that I was in the process of making an expense application, and this is going to be one of the components I'm building into one of my business systems. It's a critical function. It goes across many things. One of my businesses is a technologies consulting firm, and then the other one is for real estate investment. So it can be used in both, and it's real simple. All it does is you add a bill or an expense account, and then there's a subtable of that, which is the actual expense, because you have one bill or one account to many payments or many bill pays or expenses. So rather than repeat the data, I explained in this video a couple times that usually that's assigned to create a new table relationship if you keep repeating data. So I made it, long story short, I made it so that you create one expense account or one bill, and then from there you create you create an expense for that bill, and you will have a drop down list and select it. And you'll see as I go through here, but on the screen, you can see I already have some data pumped in here, and this is the expense bill that I'm talking about. We have this. I have it set up to where if you click on this, it will take you over to the accounts page. You add many accounts here, or you can add a new account here. In the video, I believe we show how to do edit, add, and save. That's in the link below. That's in part 2 of this little series. We show how to add a new one, edit, and save. One of the things I didn't show in the video is this little button to either add, or this button to add a new expense. So this is what would take you to the new expense page. So some of it I don't have built out all the way, because we can do this together. But in here, it's where you would add the actual new bill. Okay, so for the month of September, I would add the new water bill payment, and I just click. I'll go into play the app, and then I would go to new, and then here's what I'm talking about. So this is the account, or the drop down for the accounts that we created. So I would select the bill that I'm going to pay, and then I can scroll through. I'm going to find the water bill. There we go. And it's for, now I put together a formula to automatically enter the date for today's date, which I show in the video. And it's because we don't, the less data we have to enter, the better, right? Who wants to enter all that data? What the expense amount is going to be, 214. And then I put something in here that's saying, is the bill paid or not? And right now the bill's not paid, because all I want to do is I want to be able to calculate all of these and then see what the total is going to be before I start to go through and pay these. That's the way I like to do my stuff, so I can sort of budget. Okay, I'm going to click save, and here we go. Object 214. Now, why is it saying that? Let's dive into that for a second. I'm going to take it out of play. Okay, so I paused it for a second, rather than you guys watch me struggle through this for a second, and I forgot what it was. Is when we add something to a data table, and then we have when we're looking up from one table to another table, or either a lookup or what we're talking about with table relationships, what it did is it gave it couldn't reference the object properly. Or if you do put it in there by its default, it will go by the UID, which is an ID from the other table, unique identification, UID. Okay, and that will look something like this. I'll put it back in there just so you can see it. And expense name. Here, I'll take it out. I'll take this out for a second so you can see it. Go back to tables. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to fields, and I'm going to remove the lookup table. So what I did is, I inserted this table. So on my pay bill screen, I went and inserted a data table. And when you insert the data table, it's going to ask you, what do you want for your data source? So in this case, I added the expense table. Okay. Now the expense table is going to have, I'll go back to tables under the application, and the expenses table has these columns. Okay. The one I was interested in was expense lookup, because that's going to point us back to this table, expense name, that gives us the one bill for the many expenses. Okay, so when you do that, so I inserted this table. It plops down some. It'll plop down some default data or default fields or columns, unless you specify that in views, which I also break down in I think part 2 of this video, and a little bit in part 1. But what happens here is I'm going to go edit the field, and I'm going to find lookup. Okay, when I add that, this is what I'm talking about. Okay, and I'm going to take this column is expense paid out. I'm going to select this and click remove. Okay, but I get this in expense ID too. I don't need this to, it doesn't make any sense for us, so I'm going to go and change the width to 0, and that should pretty much hide it. Help if I put 0, and then I'm going to say visible. It's not visible. And we'll say 0. Got to unlock it first, then 0. Nope. Sometimes if you move it a little bit, now it should take that. It should take that field, and there you go. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna move these columns around a little bit so it looks a little cleaner. Fields, this expense ID, I'm gonna move this guy down to the bottom, and that pushed it to the right. And then I'm gonna move the expense lookup up to the top. But this is what I'm talking about. You got this UID, or unique identification. And that's actually what's going on. It's, it's the expense data table pointing to the expense names table, looking at that actual expense name. So this GUID, or this UID right here, is water bill. This is Verizon, but it's like, it's not human readable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that out. And I'm just going to back it up a little bit. And just hit that, hit period, and then hit expense name. And there you go. Now, what we did is we said this item, look at the expense lookup, or look at the reference expense lookup. But in that table, by hitting period, in that table, we want to display the expense name. It took me a second to figure that out. I was going to say Shane Young. He's really great. He does a lot. Just pretty much every Power Apps tutorial you can possibly think of. I go to him a lot for references. There's also some other great ones in there. There's April Dunham. There's Ronnie DeRozzi. There's Daniel Christian. Just to name a few. Those are my go-to people. But anyways, he does a good explanation of this, where you're referencing another table, and then the syntax that goes behind that. How do you point to a specific column in that table that's being looked up? So that's what I did here. Now it's legible, and then there you go. So I'll go back to play, and then we'll test it out. I want to add a new bill this time, or I'm going to pay the expense for my HELOC. That HELOC is $200, and I'm going to save it, and there you go. Bam. That just popped up. So I'm going to close this out. When I hit save, I explained this button a little bit here. You know, it's saying after I submit it, add the data, and then put a little notification column up on the top. So I'm just going to talk over some of this application. Okay, so we modified this table. We got it looking correctly now. The only thing I didn't do in here is I had a hard time with this one too, is struggling for the totals for the table. One of the things I wanted to do here is I want to be able to toggle two things, because sometimes I don't pay a bill every month. I know, right? I don't pay my bills all the time on time. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to be able to create a filter. I wanted to be able to add, you know, all the bills for the month that would display in this table and then calculate it. Or the other thing would be, what is any bill that is unpaid and displayed in here, and toggle that. So one of the beautiful things about this is with the expense paid field down here, because it's a Boolean value, or yes, no, 1, 0, true, false, Boolean value, we can use that to do some filtering and display that in here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause it again and talk about it at a high level. My whole goal was to try and keep some of these videos down, the time down, but it is sort of hard to do, and I'm working on that. My apologies. To slim it down and be able to try and be more precise with what it is we're getting into. Here again, I'm just talking about what some of my thoughts were and my ideas going through this, and then you can add them either to your toolbox or build on them. Okay, so I did this already in another table. And I'm going to change this data table, expenses. Okay, and then I did this in another screen. Okay, so I did it on the accounts report screen. And we had all the bills here, and then we did the total down here. So that's how I did this. And I'm going to break this down here. I'm going to, because I already created this, I don't want to drag this out for you guys more than I already am. So I'm just going to copy and paste this in here, and then I'm going to change out these fields. So grand total, I'm going to take that out. And just say total, just to save some of the screen real estate. So what I did here in the quotes, I'm saying, you know, type this out. Let's just display this. So I had to put quotes because it's a string. I got spaces, I got special symbols and stuff like that. So that's going to type out this, or whatever you want to put in here. Show. And see, it pops up down here. So that, a space, and then this, because I'm concatenating another thing, and then I put the string for $, and then a space, and then I'm binding together another thing, so I'm putting the ampersand, and then sum, and then here I want to sum, but my source is going to be expenses. Throughout this video, I think I know what it is I'm trying to explain to you guys, and then I'll not be paying attention to what I'm typing. I create typos. So I fat fingered this thing. I'm like, why can't I find my expense table? And I spelled expenses wrong again. And then got used to spelling it wrong, and I'm looking for it spelled wrong, but this one was spelled right. So I'm pointing it at the expense. The source was expenses, and the expression is I wanted to sum the expense amount, which is probably spelled wrong again. Yep, sure enough. Expense total, I just seen it. Expense bills. Where are you at? Expense amount. That's what it was. And then close this. And that should give us our total. Okay. And then let's see. Let's make this pop a little bit. I'm going to tuck this away. And we want to make this bold. We want it to stop out or stand out a little bit. We'll put it in the center. And then let's make the background. Let's get this a little symmetrical. Okay, and then the background will be, just make it pop a little bit. Okay, so here we go. We'll run play one more time. Add a new bill. This time I'm going to pay the Verizon bill. $400, which is common, unfortunately. Save it, and bam, there you go. We got our total. Let's add one more. We're going to add one bill in a perfect world that is $1. I want $1 bills. And save it. And there you go. Okay. So there you go, guys. That's it. So now we have, we'll let this run all the way through. We have this in the beginning. We have a spot where we can add a new account. Okay, this is if we wanted to add a new bill, and then if we wanted to pay the expense for that bill a specific month, it's done on this page, the new payments page. So this is very crude. I just wanted to get the general concepts here. I'm trying to shrink these down, but they all seem to be ranging right around 18 to 20 minutes. Tell me what I need to improve on. I have a couple ideas myself. Spelling right and trying to shrink these down. But yeah, feel free to leave some comments, subscribe if you like it, and until next time, we'll talk.